Was it worth it? Was it worth leaving your job? Was it worth taking the risk? And was it worth everything to get to where you are?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tom's School of Life Weekly Update. I'm your community director, Kevin Dolan, joined here by our facilitators, Barbara Williams, David Moore, and Jeremy Evans, and also Darren Mullen, who's a member of the school who's had some just tremendous success starting his own business. And we want to talk about kind of what we can learn from his experience, from maybe pitfalls that he has avoided or not avoided, and sort of how he overcame things. So welcome to the show, Darren.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Pretty excited.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about Derek. Can you give us just sort of the broad strokes of where you came from professionally and what your current business is and the story of how you got started?
Sure. My background is electrical engineering. That's originally what I went to school for, and worked at various large corporations as an engineer in various roles. My last company, I was hired to manage parts obsolescence projects. So, parts going obsolete happens a lot in electronics. So figuring out how to replace them or redesign things to replace them. And I started using Smartsheet a lot for that as a tool, as a workflow tool. And then when the everything went downhill with COVID and all that nonsense, I saw it coming that the jab mandate might be coming to my company. Around May 2021, it seemed like all the companies got this memo that it was okay to require it. And I was surprised that a lot of people didn't see that coming. But because I saw that coming in June 21, I started my YouTube channel. It's giving out tutorials on there, mostly as a portfolio. I wanted to use it as a portfolio of showing my knowledge. And that led me to get my first client in September 21. And by that time, the company had announced that they were going to require everyone to get jabs. I did apply for an exemption, and I did get an exemption, which I was on the fence about that, of whether I should do that or not. But my wife was in the same situation as a speech therapist, and she got the boot because of the jab stuff. So it was in the situation where I had to help her spin up her business, her own private speech therapy practice. And at the same time, I was working to get my business spun up as well.
So I actually find a lot of a lot of the guys in my group, just a lot of people who are concerned about these kinds of things. They actually, almost everybody found a way out of the vaccine, but like so many of these guys were like, if it's not this, it's going to be something else. Yeah. Like it's just sort of you're sort of realizing that like you're not going to be left alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you started the YouTube channel. Now I feel like a lot of technical guys have this sense that like that's glutted. Like there's so much sort of YouTube content on these technical topics, and like I'm not an entertainer. I'm not like the type of guy who does YouTube or whatever it is. So can you tell me maybe about like what that was? Did you have any of those anxieties, or and like how quickly did it grow? Like what was it like getting on YouTube?
I guess a little bit, but I knew it's something I had to do. And I'm not doing video of myself either. I'm doing screen videos, tutorials. So that makes it easier that you don't have to worry about, recording yourself. You're just recording your screen. And I was comfortable doing that because I did that anyway already. And just for my job, to communicate things. So
Do you have
I
like,
didn't,
I don't know how that kind of content works as
yeah.
far as like, do you get subscribers or
I
do
did get
you,
subscribers. Yep.
yeah, like
Yeah.
how many did you get before that became like a client?
Um, I I'd have to go back and look, but I mean, I wouldn't say it was a lot, you know, um, double digits. It wasn't, triple digits or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so it didn't take a lot. I was surprised. And I didn't think it was going to turn into getting work for me. I was starting it really as hey, I want to just show my knowledge because, it's a great way to put out your knowledge, and you can always point to that and say, look, this is what I can do. Um, so
Yeah.
I kind of make your own credentials that way in a sense, right? So
Yeah, I almost think that like a lot of these technical guys, like they really they really like drastically overestimate how much reach you need to get like a
mhm,
paying client.
yeah, yeah,
If you've got this very specific skill set.
exactly. And I've had this similar experience with my email list. I'm starting an email list for my business, and I don't have a lot of subscribers on my email list. Currently it's less than 30, right?
Mm.
But I have some very dedicated subscribers, and some of them uh, interact with me. They're engaged with me. I had a scenario where I have an ebook now, thanks to the School of Life. I worked with School Life member to help produce my ebook on Smartsheet, and I'd gotten a rating on Amazon, and the person didn't leave any comments. It was just a rating, and so I emailed my list, "Hey, do you agree with this star rating?" And immediately, one of my subscribers, went to Amazon and reviewed it because he had been reading it and gave me a really nice review. And so there's a lot of value in building that email list, even if you have a handful of subscribers, because if you have these really dedicated subscribers that open almost all of your emails, and uh, there's they see some value in your content, and it's really helpful. You don't need hundreds and thousands of email subscribers to uh, have a benefit from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll open it up to the guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're bearing the lead here by a lot.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
one, Darren has a completely insane story about how he left his job. So that's one thing, and maybe we go in
Oh yeah,
whichever
give me the
order.
insane story, please.
Yeah. So, like I said, I had seen that the jab mandate might be coming, um, and I work for a really large multinational company, and their division that was headquartered in California actually made the announcement in July. So wow, it's hitting really close to home now. So a couple weeks went by, and I started thinking it over. I said, no, I need to start getting people together here in Tucson where I live, as well as other people that are in that same division that I'm in. So a couple weeks went by, and I started reaching out to people that I knew, either that worked at the company, or people that had previously worked there that might know other people there that would kind of be in the same mindset as me. I got some good leads and made some contacts that way. And so I started a Twitter account and I called it No Jab. That was the name on Twitter, No Jab. And started like a LinkedIn page and Facebook page and all these things. And I started an email list. So I started tweeting out at the company on Twitter.
Okay.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah. And so I actually got a few email subscribers from that. And what I didn't know is one of those subscribers was a snoop that worked high up in the corporate uh, executive level, actually. And I'll get a little bit more into that, but I had a lot of fun with that. But so I started this Twitter account, and one of the early subscribers was someone that was a little bit higher up in the organization, and they actually leaked to me the day before that the announcement was coming. And
Wow.
so I said, can I send that out to the email list? And they said yes. And so I did. And that same night, that same night, I printed up a bunch of flyers with QR codes that directed them to the email list sign up. And so I got them to somebody that worked second shift, the night shift. And I said, hey, put these up overnight because the announcement's coming tomorrow. And so, so he did that. He got all these flyers up around the campus, bathrooms, break rooms, places like that. And so people came in the morning and they were seeing these flyers and probably wondering what's going on. Well, about mid-morning that day, they sent out that announcement that it was coming.
Right.
And the email list subscribers just skyrocketed after that.
That's amazing.
So I think, and what was funny is that at that time, and I didn't know it, but this higher up person at kind of an executive level had gotten that announcement as well the night before.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun. What I realized is, if you use these email marketing, services, when people open the email, well, every time I sent this email, there was always this one email address that had several opens, like abnormally high of opens. And at first I thought that it was a technical thing. Their email client was reporting multiple opens or something. But no, what was happening is that they were forwarding these emails around to people, right, within the company.
Right.
So that email that I sent that leaked the announcement was opened, several hundred times. So it was being forwarded far and wide and within that company. And, yeah. So I can only speculate that they were trying to figure out, who put this, how do you find it? How do they find out? And I have no knowledge that they even know who I am, and I wasn't necessarily that quiet about it. I mean, I started having in-person meetings with people about this. So, people knew it was me running it, but probably not. I don't know that anyone in management knew that.
I got to side with Jeremy on this one. You massively buried the lead.
Yeah.
My goodness, lead the revolution.
There's significantly more details. One, let's just point out French resistance.
Yeah.
He's going underground. He's leaving like secret signs on doors.
Right.
QR codes in bathroom stalls qualifies, right? That's our modern version here.
It's incredible.
There is a story where he talks with management. And by the way, I'm well known for being an excellent listener. So here's the reality. There's probably even more to this than I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, briefly, the time that you spoke with somebody there saying, "Oh, Darren, it's so weird. There's this, this organized resistance in an email list against the fax mandate, and that's just so weird. What do you think about that, Darren?" I'm doing my HR voice, if I may. I'm sorry, HR folks.
No. Well, and that never, that never happened. I mean, no one ever talked to me about it. I don't know. I'm not aware that anyone ever really knew it was me in the upper position. If they did, they didn't care.
But you talked to somebody in management about this.
I know.
I did.
Right. And you were a mystery and you were just, oh yeah, so weird. What an odd thing. I love the vaccine. No, I'm knowing Darren, he definitely did not say that, but
no. Yeah, I mean, it was a couple of times, like with my boss, he'd have these staff meetings, with our group, and it would come up. I say, "Oh yeah, did you hear about this no jab campaign that's going around?" "Oh no, I haven't heard about that." "Oh yeah, they have the whole website and everything." And okay, yeah. And then after the announcement came out, there was another meeting, a higher meeting with my boss and his boss and these other bosses and everything. And so they go through the whole thing and they say, "Oh, you have any questions?" And they hadn't said anything about the announcement, even though it had been out. And I said, "Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room." I said, "How about this mandate for the shot?" And but that was good because that smoked out some more people that started chiming in. And so I knew, okay, these are people I need to contact and say, "Hey, you need to join up."
It's I mean, so many, like, this is such like a high agency, like high initiative, like, And I think about the type of people that they're losing.
Yeah.
To,
and that's what I brought up too, is
it's not a random sample.
No, all the people that were really against it, I mean, they're all the higher performing employees, and I even brought that up in the meeting. I said, the staff meeting, I said, look, all these people that are against it, I know them. They're all your high best employees. Are you willing to just let them just go because of this? They're like, well, yeah, we're worried about that, but yeah.
Now, they didn't let them go because people applied for exemptions, and now they largely got the exemptions. I'll spoil that part of the story. Now, what was your response? You mentioned you applied for the exemption, you got the exemption, and then
I just continued business as usual. I mean, just continued ramping up my business, and because I was working on leaving. I wanted to leave. Because like Kevin said, I mean, what's next, right? At that point, I didn't want to be, I don't want to work for that company, right? They're going to treat you that way, and they die. I mean, they put in writing that if you don't have the jab, then you have to eat, like you had to eat lunch separately from everyone else, and I mean, they actually that was actually, I mean, that was their official policy that they put out. Like, oh, you can go to the break room, but you have to sit. You can't sit with.
You have to wear the dunce cap.
Yeah, and I brought that up. I mean, I said that. It's like, look, I'm not coming in. I'm not going to wear a dunce cap, and
well, I think it's worse than that. I mean, I think you're going to the back of the bus and you're wearing a badge. I mean, it's a insane level of segregation. Here's the thing. We're glossing over this. Darren is not going to promote himself. Darren quit anyway for ideological reasons after being granted the exemption. Darren was paid very well, right? Darren was paid very well, and he was doing very well. He was obviously well connected to other people in the organization. This story doesn't emerge from somebody who was in isolation, right? He quite literally organized everybody else at the company. He was thoroughly enmeshed. And I'm going to steal Barbara's question here, because of course I am. But I mean, how did that feel, separating yourself out from something that you were so deeply ingrained with, and also the income, right? I mean, that's a huge shift.
Yeah, it felt good to leave, but because that's where but yeah, the income, that was the scary part. But I prepared for that. I mean, I'd always just kept a decent amount of savings anyway, because I knew that I always had this mindset that there could always be a reason that you would have to leave, or you get the boot for some reason, or there's a lot of reasons why working for a company is not as necessarily secure as a lot of people think.
Hey, briefly, I want to stick a little feather in that, or a pin. What do we stick? That people with that mindset of, I am contracted with my employer for some period of time, and I have these conversations with my staff, right? They are better performant. They know whether or not they're going up or down, and they don't get the locked in. They don't get the locked in syndrome, where this is my whole life and there's nothing else. And I hate it, by the way. It also sucks, but I'm stuck here because it's a purgatory of my own design. So that's a great predictor. I've seen that play out many, many times. People who avoid the lock-in syndrome just by being pragmatic and realistic, maybe applying Austrian economics to the exchange of labor for capital. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Somebody else pepper him.
I know we're going to get to this, the success of your business, but I just want to compliment your guerrilla marketing in terms of starting an email list. I think a lot of people, if it's online, it has to start online. It has to have some online offering, but to start an email list with an offline campaign, I think is really cool. And the fact that you talk about the success of your email list, or at least one of your email lists, with it being under 30 people, but it being a very engaged group. And those are numbers that I think are really encouraging for people who are listening, because it really harkens back to like the Kevin Kelly 1000 True Fans article that came out years ago, where you can really have a living based on some diligent, committed clientele. And I think for folks that are kind of thinking about doing this and thinking that they have to have some critical mass online artifacts or creation before they can, start to ask for the honor of someone's email. You did it with the simple. I mean, it's like leaving a flyer on the copier, right?
Yeah.
In the break room, but at larger
yeah.
scale. So I think that's just a great example to kind of lift up and point out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for my business email list, I give away a simple tips document. Here's my 7 Smartsheet tips, and there you go. I mean, that's how people sign up. So
they think people think it's harder than it is.
Yeah.
And or they like with this email list, it's like you didn't need, like, if you sort of scattered an email campaign to the winds, like the whole world or whatever, like, having a small number of subscribers doesn't mean that much. But if it's a small list of subscribers that are all like that are like 10% of like the highest performers at a Fortune 500 company, like, it's like that's a powerful list. Like, that's almost a cabal. Like, that's
yeah. They're cheering you on, and they're willing to help you out with your Amazon reviews. They're just it's this enormous asset that will continue to grow. But I think the asset at a small scale is even extremely valuable. I makes me, when I first heard that, it's like, start an email list tomorrow.
Right.
You are. That's the message I took from that.
What I want to add, I've spoken too much, but anyway, the important thing here is all he did is raise the flag on a common interest. I mean, these people had a very direct and pressing interest, which meant that it was very easy to circulate the secret memo, right?
Yeah.
And then if you are struggling with Smartsheets, but you have to figure out Smartsheets, that is yet again a group of common interests. And that's where the real value comes from. The tighter and more united that interest is, the more performant the list is.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And for example, I have someone on my list that works at a company, pretty decently large company, and he got me in touch. He actually got me a meeting with someone that's more of a decision maker that could possibly lead to work for me if they wanted it. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen with those contacts on your list. It's pretty amazing. I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn outreach as well. Kind of like you suggested in your talk, Jeremy. I have my company page. I have a lot of followers on my company page, a couple hundred. And so I just started reaching out to them individually, trying to connect with them on LinkedIn, and the response has been really good.
Yeah, I imagine, because if they're committed enough, again, how deep am I in the Smartsheets hole before I'm seeking help and guidance? Yeah. And that's the thing about YouTube earlier. There are never going to be enough videos about how to change the oil of X for X year at X time. I mean, technical videos are a component of YouTube. Any one of them doesn't get a ton of views, but combined, this is a massive, massive market because people have very specific problems, and getting that specific help helps. All right, the next lead that is buried, because there's 2 parts, remember? So this guy did the French Resistance. And my summary here, and maybe I'm exaggerating, and forgive me if I am, but he detected the vax mandate. He spreads flyers everywhere he goes. He organizes a resistance. And then they say, oh, how about we just do exemptions for everybody? Maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe it's not, right? He may have played a role there. Darren did not mention that, right? But to me, that springs to mind. Then they gave him the exemption, and he said, well, I carried on as usual. You quit your job. You quit your job out of a sense of like self-respect and dignity, which is, by the way, really dangerous, right? It's dangerous and scary. And most of us are faced with that. If you have an argument with your boss, even one time, right, you're thinking about quitting your job, and you're like, well, this guy is really, what am I going to do? But I need the money, right? We've all been in that scenario. There is not one amongst us who has not done that and taken the easier route. Now, on the other end of that is the second big point here. Darren has found success with his business. Now, heavily 100% replicated the income of being a highly paid electrical engineer, obsoleting products and things like this. Not quite, but closer than you would think. In the course of really 2 years. So I have June 21 was the very first YouTube video. That's when you broke champagne, you savored the bottle, right? Okay, so we did savor it. First client, September 21.
Yep.
And then kind of hitting that full-time livelihood, fully committing yourself to the Smartsheets Guru around March 22. That is tight. That is a tight little time frame. Now we're in March. Correct me. Yes, we're in March 23. And you're doing okay. I mean, while starting your wife's business.
Can I ask? And then I think Barbara had a thought, but can I ask how, not in terms of dollars, but in terms of months, if you thought about it this way, what kind of runway did you have when you gave your boss the bird?
Over a year.
Okay.
Well, over a year at least. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long did it take for your business to like stop, not necessarily replace your old income, but like stop burning down the runway?
Pretty soon. I gets a little muddy because, you know, my wife had her business going and she actually took off really quickly with hers. She had her first client after a week after she got, that was an interesting story. Her company wouldn't really fire her, even though they did, but they didn't call it that. It was weird. Yeah, it was probably a legal thing, but anyway,
I think speech therapy in particular is one of these things where like the practitioner kind of owns the capital in that thing. Like it's just easy. It's easier than most professions to like do it on your own. And I think so you had about a year. So that's one way that like you can make somebody braver, I think, with starting a business is get them saving, get them extending runway.
That's we did that. I mean, I had a decent amount of savings anyway, but we just cut back a few things and put even more cash in the bank just in case, you know. As far as, you know, how long did it take me? I guess, you know, I officially left my job in April, which, I mean, I was working from home. You know how those corporate jobs are. I mean, it's not like you work much anyway, but
right.
You know, it doesn't, mediocrity is excellent generally. So, you know, if you put in a good 10 hours a week, you're probably above everyone else anyway. So,
When you were coming up with the concept for your business, did it cross your mind, oh, people have already done this, there's other players in the space, or did you kind of keep your blinders on and just create your own version, assuming that there would be enough differences in your take on the process?
Yeah, I think I kind of had my blinders on. I didn't really know what I was doing, obviously, and I didn't know if Smartsheet was going to be the thing. Even I kind of threw out Smartsheet, and I said, well, maybe I could do web design too. So I was throwing both of those out there, and the Smartsheet is what really picked up momentum. So I went with that. And that's what I had more experience with anyway. I think one thing that gave me a cue is I checked out some of the freelancer platforms, and I saw that, you know, people were posting, hey, I need somebody for Smartsheet. Hey, I need somebody for this, for that. And so I got an idea of at least there was a market need for my services. So I suggest that the people actually, if they have some sort of professional service of some sort, go to the freelancing platforms and just look at the postings on there, because then you get an idea of what the needs are. And if you see postings on there for your services, then it tells you, well, you know, and that's just one subset of the market. You know, I don't really do much on those platforms anymore. I got some jobs initially on there, met some decent clients off of there, but really ultimately contracting direct is where it's at. That's where you want to be, in my opinion.
Man, I encounter so many guys that like, it's gotta, like, they're looking for a job and it's gotta be a job.
Yeah. What's up with that? And we're thinking the same guy.
Yeah.
Yes. I know. Just go to Upwork. Just go to Upwork.
Yeah.
Start
Well,
selling your service. Get sharpen the axe. Know where the demand is. Please use Upwork.
Yeah. Even if it's not, even if you're not even like gonna find like the specific gig, even on Upwork, you can use that for market research. You can use that to like, so a lot of guys are like, well, I want to be a software developer, but I have no idea what I need to learn. Upwork will tell you.
Yeah.
They'll tell you exactly what they need you to know.
Yeah.
And then go learn it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a huge tool.
When I was running in the covert resistance campaign against the company there, I at first it was, hey, let's kind of fight the mandate thing, but I didn't really think that it would actually do anything. I didn't think that we would actually overturn anything, right? But I started directing it more in a positive way. I said, well, think about what you're going to do when you leave, right? Because obviously you don't want to be here, so what are you going to do? What's your plan? Kind of like an exit thing, right? So and so unfortunately I was a little disappointed, because when people started getting their exemptions, they just were happy and just gave up.
Many such cases.
But what a piece of piece of information to when you're getting something from your employer and you're excited that you might have to leave, you might have to take a stand, right? And then when they give you the exemption, then you have to stay, and then you're kind of disappointed. That piece of information is that you need to leave.
Exactly.
You're excited about getting fired. You need to really grab a pen and do some journaling. Because it's time to take steps.
Even a defensive promotion can be like that. You get another offer and you're excited about it, and you like sort of invite your employer to match it, and then they do. And I've had that experience where it's like, if you knew what I was worth before, you shouldn't have waited. Yeah.
Our boys in the Army do that every 3-4 years, right? Army, Navy, etc. They say, oh, well, you just have 25 more years till your pension, and look at this nice raise. Your re-enlistment bonus is just good. I mean, I think, have perfected this art of kind of, I don't want to say enslavement, but it's, I'm actually, I'm reminded of the bondage that results from over-attachment to the material, right? And that is abstract, a little bit goofy, forgive me, but it is directly relevant here in the sense that income is the material world, right? Your spiritual, your higher principle, that which should be guiding you, your moral compass, is nobody steps on me like this. I'm not a man to be trifled with. I'm not going to bow down to big government, big company, whatever the hell it is. If somebody is going to walk all over me, what example am I to my kids? How am I going to feel about this on my deathbed? How am I going to feel about this telling other people around the water cooler? And then what decision am I going to make? With your whole life in perspective. And I have two things written here. One is perspicacity, my $25 word, which is looking around. It's looking around. So Darren was aware sooner than most people. Now he was also well connected, and he got a leak. That was a day before, so but he was aware, and he could sense the mood in the room a little bit as well, right? And put out those feelers. And the second is foresight, right? Darren didn't look at, okay, well, this vax mandate is I can get out of it or I can't. He said, well, what comes after the vax mandate? And I think that maybe Darren even looked all the way out to what will my great grandchildren, what is the consequence to them? If I lie down now and succumb and surrender, what does that look like? What rippling effects spread outward from that? That's not easy, but it is important to confront that kind of future.
Yeah, no, I definitely thought about it that way too. That, what do you, if you just give in now, what are you paving the road for? What makes it easier future, right? And actually something I kind of felt bad about going for the exemption. I felt, well, I should just let them, get rid of me, let them do it, but my wife kind of talked me out of it and said, oh, I'm getting the boot here. We're starting our new business here, but you really want to do that? I said, okay. So what I did, like a lot of big companies, they pay their yearly bonuses in March. A lot of them pay in March or in February. So I stuck around to get that, and I said, I want to use the rest of my vacation. I had 6 weeks built up, and they said, well, you can't do 6 weeks. You can do 4. So okay, I'll do 4. And then I came back after that. The first day back, I said I'm leaving. So this is my last day. So
2 weeks notice.
yeah,
So good.
I didn't. So, whatever. I'm not. This is my last day. And I gave the announcement with my manager and my group. He had every morning he did his little meeting with everyone, right? And so I made that announcement in that meeting with everyone and I gave the reason why. I said, look, because of this mandate, and be treated second class or third class, and I'm done. This is my notice. This is my last day.
Did you sign your resignation letter? No jab.
Yeah, Jeff.
I want to go back to
Yeah.
your success then, since then,
Yeah.
and in your business. You've
Mhm.
mentioned, you started the YouTube channel, obviously started an email list, created an ebook, did LinkedIn marketing, and then you were more recently asked to be a guest on a webinar, like a Q&A panel thing.
Yep.
That sounds like a lot to people, but
Mhm.
as I was watching you progress week by week, can you give us a sense of when you implemented each step, kind of how slow you went? You kind of did, one thing at a time, and what your thought process was on that.
Yeah, I guess the first step that I had was, I got to get some income coming in, right? So I was in that situation of just finding people to hire me to do work. That was the first thing. And then I said, well, I got to start an email list for my company. And I did. I was very slow with that because I didn't know what to pitch at the time, other than, hey, hire me. And I didn't necessarily want to do that because hire me because I only have so much time. So then when I got the ebook going, I started. That was a really good thing to do, and I wouldn't have done it, I don't think, if it wouldn't have been being in the school and the accountability group. And for a technical ebook, it doesn't have to be that long to have value to people. Mine's only 40 something pages. It's nothing. And there's a lot of screenshots. So you don't have to think that you have to write this novel or, write human action or, thousands of pages. It can be relatively short. And it provides value. So that was a good exercise for me, not even just to have, not to have the book really, but just to know I could do it. And it gives you a lot of credibility, just having that book in the store, right? Having that book on Amazon or in a bookstore saying, look, I have my ebook. That gives it just gives you instant credibility. People, they find out you're an author and they just, all of a sudden, they think more of you.
How long do you think you worked on that?
I kind of drug it out. So it was a couple months, but
He drug it out at a couple months.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I hit maybe 3. I had a lot of stops and starts with it because it was my first one, and I think that and I have plans for another one. I want to do another one because I think it's a good something to have. And I want to really for my next one, I want to really focus it more on some things I'm offering now, more products that I'm offering, digital type Smartsheet products. Where I didn't have those the first time around, so I didn't have a lot to market there other than sign up for my list or, so get the ebook going, and it sells, and getting, I don't know, maybe a copy every other day or something. It sells a little bit more than that, so it's
great.
Something that it's reaching people. Is my point.
I'd like to know sort of what role the school played and how partly yes, tell us how cool the school was.
Yeah.
But also I think that there are people who can sense and they believe that there's a lot of value here, but they're maybe not exactly sure how to access it and deploy it. So can you tell us how did you use the resources of the school?
Yeah, when Tom first made the announcement for the school, the initial announcement, I looked at it and I wasn't really sure, what it was going to be about. And then when he had his second enrollment opening at that time, I don't know if the accountability group started before then or not, or maybe it was around that time.
It was right around that time.
Yeah, it was right around the time. The accountability groups, he's really talking up the accountability groups. And that's what really brought me in. So I said, I'm on my own here. I don't really know anyone that's doing this. I need some sort of coaching in this, or some sort of resource, someone that can kind of mentor me. And so right away I signed up for an accountability group, and I was assigned to Barbara's group, and that's been the great value for me, as well as meeting other people to help me, say, get my ebook, or and even explaining to others. Even I've had the opportunity to mentor others in the school too, and that's helpful too for you, because you learn from that, and it helps you kind of focus your efforts and figure out what you're even trying to do yourself, so you can explain it to someone else. So that's been the two big values I've seen, is the accountability groups, because I get to bounce so many ideas off of people that have a lot more experience than I do, and they're very willing to help. And then meeting other people in that same situation, or business owners with a lot more experience that are more than happy to mentor you.
Have you bounced around to calls, or have you stayed in your primary call?
I have a little bit, and I just started that recently. I've joined Jeremy's call a week and David's call 1 week. So far, that's what I've done, and it's good because you get a whole different perspective from a different group of people. But I do like sticking with the core group, because you really get to know those people and see. It's really encouraging to see them grow as well. I've seen a lot of people in my group really grow a lot. And the couple of weeks that I was gone, and I come back and they have all these new things that they've accomplished. It's pretty inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
What they've done in just a couple of weeks of me not being there, wow, it's amazing.
If I may, well, one, I feel like I'm reading it's not a Dickens novel, old English, maybe Canterbury Tales. Anyway, we're bouncing around between a lot of different protagonists, but everyone's progressing simultaneously in the same world, right? And it's thrilling. And that's what every time I petition people to leave calls and go between them, but I have to figure out what Shane is doing. If we don't get to the end of what Shane is up to this week, I am not going to be able to sleep at night. Right. And it's beautiful. But my broader point here is we are talking about kind of myths of what it takes to actually start a business. And we're talking about proximity to people that have done that, maybe more recently. I did some ballsy things, but this was like 10 years ago for me. And sometimes you really do have to take risk. And that's kind of what I'm focused on here, because I think that a lot of people want to be roughly what you're doing, right? They want to be independent. They want to be producing their own income. And then it's like, okay, well, Darren's really smart, or Darren is especially good looking, or whatever. Darren has some kind of advantage that I don't, that enabled him and his wife to start a business at the exact same time to avoid this kind of ideological blowback. So I'm curious, what is maybe easier than you thought it would be, or what do you see in the other people that you talk with as a misconception about just what it takes to be able to go independent?
I think thinking you have to have everything figured out before you start, before you leave. And because I've had others in the school ask me one-on-one, what did you do to get started? And it's like, well, I just started. I mean, I didn't really have a plan. I just put myself out there and to see what would stick. Just taking that risk of, well, I'm gonna create an Upwork account and apply to some postings and see what happens. And interestingly enough, I said, well, I'll do a Fiverr posting too, just because. And I actually got more serious clients off Fiverr than I did Upwork, which kind of blew me away. But so yeah, you just experiment, find out, figure out. I mean, I had a plan in a sense. I think I'm going to do Smartsheet work, but I wasn't 100% sure it would work out. But I started just experimenting, putting myself out there.
Do you have examples of some failed experiments?
Yeah. I think the web design experiment was failed. I had some experience with that on my own, but I never really had a lot of formal experience with that. I went and bought hosting, reseller hosting package, thinking that, I'm gonna have all these clients, I'm be selling them hosting as well and all this. But
yeah.
I love that you said Fiverr brought you bigger clients than Upwork, and just in your particular case, right? And I've heard so many, and I probably have said it myself, like, oh, Upwork is where you go to get the bigger stuff, and but that's theoretical. That's not based on experimentation. And experimentation is where the answers.
And that's what I thought. I thought Upwork had a more professional image than Fiverr did, and I didn't even think that I thought Fiverr was more of, that's where you get your logo. That's where I got my logo from.
Right.
I always think of Fiverr more for that sort of graphic designs or logos and things. But I put a posting up there and got work. Okay, great.
One example of not quite a failure per se, but I remember you were struggling at one point with how to price yourself, and also like the payment structure, and do you get clients on retainer, do you go hourly? And that was a question. And I remember we talked about it a bit, and I know you bounced around in the idea in the groups, and you kind of just went with something, right? You just made the suggestion with the client. And since then, you've realized you needed to up your rates, and you have, and you've asked for that from clients. Not only that, you've, in the process of saying, hey, I'm bumping up my rates, you've also been like, oh, and I'm going to put you on retainer. And they've, I think almost all of them have said yes, or all of them have. I think that's an example of, I wouldn't say that was a mistake in the beginning of pricing yourself too low necessarily or anything like that, but that was just part of the process you had to go through to find that pricing sweet spot.
Yeah, and that kind of is related to a little bit of a failure initially, was thinking that I don't have much experience in this, so I need to only go for lower paying jobs. I mean, that was kind of my mindset at first, was, well, I can't compete with the premium price people because I don't have that experience, right? But so one of the mistakes early on was taking on those lower, really price conscious clients, that because the problem is, there's nothing wrong with being price conscious, because we all do that. But the problem with a lot of those is they want everything. They have unrealistic expectations. They want it now, they want it perfect, and they want it cheap, and that doesn't really work well together. So that was one mistake, is shooting too low at first, not having the confidence to even try going higher up.
It's amazing how high dollar clients can be so much less work. That's totally been my experience.
And that's what I found is when I started just, and one of the mistakes is not taking big enough jumps in my pricing. Is, okay, well, I'll just up it a little bit. I'll up another $5 or $10. Well, no, I mean, for current clients, for example, a lot of them I'm still in kind of that hourly or retainer hourly situation, and bumping up $20 an hour is not been a problem for them. They just said, oh, okay, that's fine. And part of it is maybe they knew I was priced a bit low anyway. And so I'm able to take those big jumps. Part of it too is they've been happy with my work, and so yeah. And now newer clients. I'm even going a lot higher. And when I started, I didn't know, there wasn't a lot of price transparency in what I do with a lot of companies. It's
Right.
And so I didn't even know what to charge. And when you do find out what people charge, it's all over the place.
Most
And
B2B
so-
services are like that.
Exactly.
And the answer, by the way, if you're interested in going in there, you call these guys up. You speak
Yeah.
with their salespeople. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's sometimes difficult to convince people to do this basic competitor research, but it's really useful.
Yeah, and I guess that was something I was scared to do. I mean, I said, well, they're not gonna, they're not gonna talk to me, But that was the problem, is I was, saying that something wasn't gonna happen when I didn't even try, right? And what's happened is
fortunately nobody else has ever had that problem, Darren.
No.
So I mean, that's just you.
I've never done that.
Yeah.
Well, and the one of the most fascinating things about doing that research in almost any, I mean, unless you're selling like wheat or like raw copper, it's like these prices are not, there's not a market clearing price.
Yeah.
The market's not rational. It's all over the map. You charge what you charge. Like, it's kind of liberating, actually.
Yeah, it's fair. And I've, something when I was on the call with David a few weeks ago, I brought up about, I've made a number of partnerships with other competitors, really, other firms, other consulting firms. There's one firm, I sent a client their way because I didn't want to work with them. I knew that. I mean, no, I mean, really, I didn't think I'd be a good fit for them, what they were asking for. And I said, but I do know a company that would be a good fit for you. And before I told them, I approached that company. I said, hey, do you have a referral program if I send someone your way? I said, oh yeah, we have a partner program. Oh, great. I said, well, I got somebody for you. And it ended up working out, and that company sold them one of these big unlimited monthly maintenance packages that it's a recurring income for them. So they send me a recurring commission every month. So it's a nice situation. So, that's something to think about too, is you don't have to think that, I'm just one guy and, I'm competing with these bigger firms. Well, work with those bigger firms and say, hey, if I send some your way, will you give me something? And generally the answer is yes.
I've experienced too, some of those bigger firms, they see the smaller firm, the startup, and they look, maybe they have a higher minimum, or maybe they have some price points that you haven't listed yet or achieved yet, whatever it might be. And they love sending things to the small.
Definitely.
They almost kind of envy your story, right? Like one day I'll be Darren out there, and somebody, some big ocean liner will throw me some right.
That's I have found some larger firms that will subcontract work to me. Obviously you can't expect to make as much as you do contracting direct, but at least having some of those when you start out is nice, because it is a little more steady work, and you can, you don't have to think that, oh, I have to work 40 hours a week just like I did in my corporate job. Well, no, you don't have to do that. If you only want, if you can meet your expenses doing 10 or 20 hours of work a week, and then spend the other part of your week building up, doing other experiments of, hey, let me try selling this, or let me try getting a higher dollar client on my own. That's kind of what I do now, where sure, I have some clients that give me a little steady income, but then I'm focusing on, trying to sell some products, which a couple of my products I sell are on commission from a bigger firm in the UK. I approached them. I said, look, you have these products that I think are really good. If I send people your way, will you give me a commission? They said, oh, yeah, we have a partner program. And I'm not the first person to do that, I found out, and that's not advertised. They don't have a banner on their website saying sign up for our partner program. I just asked them, and they said, yeah.
The strongest lesson I personally have learned from Darren is just ask. Like the worst thing that can happen. Ask and you shall receive. The worst thing that can happen is someone says no. But Darren has asked for things left and right. And it's just shocking how often, it's not shocking when you know Darren. He's a nice guy. He's professional. He's good at what he does. So these things are happening around him, but he's asking. He's not afraid to ask. And that's just such a strong lesson.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And with like LinkedIn, for example, I mean, my mistake is I didn't start doing this earlier, right? But you asked about a while back, Barbara, about how long it's taken me to see some results from some of my efforts. And the LinkedIn reach out, I only started that a few weeks ago. And within that first week, one of the people I reached out to invited me to take part in a webinar his company was running. I didn't expect that. I didn't even know he had a webinar going on. But it was another consultant. I saw they do consultant work, and I just connected to him, and I said, hey, I see you're another consultant. I'm always looking to connect to other consultants in this industry, and right away he responded, and I think he probably checked out my profile and saw, oh, he's got his YouTube channel, his book, and says, oh, we need another Smartsheet expert on our panel for a webinar. You want to be part of it? And we can promote your book, and that's fine. And it's okay, great.
In the spirit of just asking,
Yeah.
I think you touched on something that organizations do things and will do things that are not listed on their website.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You have to contact the organization. You're essentially this inbound business development inquiry guy who's like, here's an idea. And I've seen a lot of people oftentimes and I've done it myself, where I'll look at the website, like, well, do they offer this? Do they have this partner program, or whatever it might be? Right. And it's like, well, they'll have whatever you ask for if you can help them co-create it. And organizations are can be just as malleable as individuals.
Yep. Yeah, especially
it's all just rules made by people. That's absolutely true.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. Well, guys, this has been a great conversation. Jeremy, you got a last thought?
I'll skip the LinkedIn bit, but I hear that all the time. If you have anything business to business service that you could be offering, you should have been doing this for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
I have one question for Darren. It's the big bow on the cake question. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
We're going to tie everything up, Darren.
Okay.
Was it worth it? Was it worth leaving your job? Was it worth taking the risk? And was it worth everything to get to where you are?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely worth it.
Well, there you have it, ladies and
I recommend it. I recommend it, and I keep trying to talk everyone I know into doing it if they can, because I see so many unhappy people at their jobs and say, "Oh, I need to start my own thing." So, well, just go do it. I did it. I mean, you can do it. Not stopping you. And you don't have to do exactly what you're doing either. You can do something related or do something totally different. There's so many opportunities out there. You just need to look for them.
100%. All right, this has been a great conversation. Really appreciate you being here, Darren, and thanks to the facilitators for your questions. And we'll see everybody next week. Thanks a lot for being here.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate you asking me to be here.
Where do we find Darren? Where do we where do we send people?
Smartsheetguru.com.
Smartsheetguru.com. All right, check him out. All right, thanks.
Thank you.